Okay, this is another topic on financial management. The objective is to introduce you to the basic concepts of working capital management. Okay, so let's start with some definitions. No, when we say working capital management, this is also known as short-term financial management. Okay, and the focus is on the management of current assets and current liabilities. Now, when we say current assets, this normally includes inventory, accounts receivable, marketable securities, and cash, no? And in accounting, normally when we say current assets, this refers to your assets that can be realized within 1 year or the normal operating cycle, whichever is longer. And normally we have 5 elements, arranged according to liquidity. We start with cash, followed by marketable securities. Then you have your trade receivables, inventories, and then you have your prepayments. Now, for the purpose of our discussion, we will just focus on inventories, accounts receivable, marketable securities, and cash. Now, current liabilities normally includes notes payable, accruals, and accounts payable. In accounting, these are the liabilities that should be paid, that should be paid within a year or the normal operating cycle, whichever is longer. Ayun. Now, firms are able to reduce financing costs or increase the funds available for expansion by minimizing the amount of funds tied up in working capital. We're going to discuss this later. How are firms able to reduce financing costs or increase the funds available for expansion when they are able to minimize the funds, that are tied up in our working capital? Now, as of this point, I want to emphasize that in most financial management books, when we say working capital, not working capital management, I'm just referring to working capital. When we say working capital, they only refer to current assets. But in accounting, when we say working capital, this is actually the difference of your current assets and current liabilities. Now, in financial management, the difference of current assets and current liabilities is known as the net working capital. Moving on. So working capital refers to, ito pala siya current assets, which represent the portion of investment that circulates from one form to another in the ordinary conduct of business. And the net working capital, this is now the difference of the firm's current assets and its current liabilities. It can be positive or negative, but most of the time, under normal operations, most of the time your net working capital is positive. The computation is current assets less current liabilities. So we should also understand the trade-off between profitability and risk. In working capital management, these are the two basic elements that you have to consider, whether you're going to increase or decrease the amount that is tied up in your working capital. Starting with profitability, this is the relationship between revenues and costs generated by using the firm's asset, both current and fixed, in productive activities. A firm can increase its profits by increasing the revenues or decreasing the costs. Profitability can also be understood as the company's ability to generate profits from its normal operation. Now, what about risk? Now, there are different types of risks. For working capital management, most of the time we are referring to the risk of insolvency. So this is the probability that a firm may be unable to pay its bills or its liabilities as they come due. Okay. What is insolvent? Okay. This refers to a firm, okay, that is unable to pay its bills or liabilities as they come due. Normally, okay, this is indicated by the difference of your current assets and current liabilities. Okay, if current liabilities is higher than your current asset, okay, that is already a sign that the company is insolvent. They will not be able to cover their liabilities. Okay, so ayun. Now, what are the effects of changing ratios in on profits and risk? Okay, talking about the first ratio, no, yung current assets over total assets. This is your current asset to total asset ratio. Ayan. Now, sabi niya, if the ratio will increase, the effect on profit will be decrease. Okay? And the effect on risk will also be decrease. So, bakit kaya? Now, take note, when the ratio will increase, okay, this can be due to, okay, the increase can be due to the increase in your current assets. Okay, sulat nga natin dito. O pag nag-increase, okay, your current asset will increase or maybe your total assets will decrease. Okay, so bakit effect on profit decrease? Take note, no, the level of your current asset is affected by how much you invest in your current assets, okay? Which means that the more you invest in your current assets, the more capital tied up to your current assets, there will be more opportunity cost for you to earn in investment. Kunyari, meron kang investment dito, no? Let's say that the value of your investment is 1 million pesos and it's currently earning at 8%. If this 1 million pesos is now invested in current assets, no, maybe in the form of cash or maybe it's tied up in your inventories or accounts receivable, wala na. Instead of earning this 8%, it's now tied up in your current assets. That's why the effect on profit is decrease. Okay, because of the opportunity cost, no? This benefit that was lost. Now, what about the risk? Okay, what kind of risk? We're talking about the risk of insolvency. The risk that you may not be able to pay your liabilities. So, if you invested, no, or if you have this 1 million tied up in your current assets, of course, your cash will increase. Okay, cash will increase or inventories will increase. And if that is higher, then it will be easier for you to pay your liabilities. Okay, so the insolvency risk will go down. And the opposite will also be true, no? If your current assets will go down, no? Okay, if the amount of assets tied up to your current assets, okay, will decrease, okay, this means that you will have more capital that can be invested, no, in other opportunities. So if that happens, okay, babaliktarin mo lang, no? You will now be able to earn this 8%. So your profit will now increase. Okay? But because you decreased your current assets, kunyari in the form of cash, okay, then your ability to pay your liabilities or your bills will now be affected. So the effect on insolvency risk will increase. So, ganon. Now, what about your current liabilities? What happens to your profit and the risk if this ratio will increase? Okay, when will this ratio increase? Okay, if your current liabilities will increase. So, that's one, no? Okay, or your current assets will decrease. But let's just focus on this one. If your current liabilities will increase, okay, your profit will increase. Paano po nangyari yon? Okay. Now, since your liabilities, no, your current liabilities is affected, okay, number one, by the timing of payment, no? This means that now when we say timing of payment, most of the time we are referring to your deferral period, no? Instead of paying your expenses, no, at the time when they are incurred, or let's say instead of paying your purchases at the point of purchase, okay, you extend the payment, no, from, let's say, from day 1, instead of 1 day lang, gagawin mo siyang 10 days, or maybe 30 days, okay, or maybe you normally pay your liabilities at 30 days, but then, okay, you try to look for suppliers who will give you a credit period of, let's say, 60 days. Okay, so by extending, ayun na lang, by extending the payment of your liabilities, you are actually increasing your liabilities. And if you do that, okay, you will have more funds available, no, for other purposes. So, for example, from 30 days to 60 days, okay, you extended the payment, o di ibig sabihin nun, you will have more money to invest. Instead na binayad mo na sa supplier mo, we're just gonna make this earn muna by 8%. Okay, so if that's the case, your profit will increase. But what about the risk? Syempre, it will also increase, no? Because higher liabilities will mean that you need more assets to pay your liabilities. Ganun lang yun. And if you try to look at the pattern, di ba, it follows, no, the basic concept on our actions. Action number 1, the higher the risk, the higher the return. Lower risk, lower return. Okay po? So, ayun. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about your cash conversion cycle. Actually, we have other discussions already, no, done on the cash conversion cycle when we discuss the asset management ratios. Pero i-discuss ulit natin ngayon. So, what is your CCC? This is actually the length of time required for a company to convert cash invested in its operations to cash received as a result of its operations. Okay? Or in other words, this is actually the number of days it takes, no, for a company to receive, okay, the cash that was paid from operations. Nasundan ba? Okay? Or if you want to simplify that further, it's the number of days from cash out to cash in. So, mula nung lumabas yung pera hanggang sa bumalik siya. Okay, so that is now your cash conversion cycle. And normally, it's measured in terms of days. Ayan, so what are the basic components of our cash conversion cycle? First, let's talk about your operating cycle. Okay, your operating cycle is actually the time from the beginning of the production process to the collection of cash from the sale of the finished product. And this is measured, no, in elapsed time by summing the average age of inventory and the average collection period. So these are actually two ratios, no? The average age in inventory is also known as your sales period. This is actually from the time of, sige, sulat na lang natin. Ayan. From the time of, sabi niya, no, from the time the beginning of the production process that normally starts at the time of purchase. Okay, so from the time of purchase, okay, up to the time of sales, okay, this is actually your average age in inventory, also known as your sales period. Okay, and then, sabi niya, summing the average age of inventory and the average collection period. The average collection period is actually how many days it takes you to collect your sale on credit. So that will be from the date of sale up to the date of collection. Okay, so that's now your average collection period, or simply your collection period. Now, if you add these two, you will now have your operating cycle. So, assuming no, from the date of purchase up to the date of sale, let's say it took you, ano kaya? Let's say it took you 40 days. There you go, 40 days. And then from the date of sale up to the date of collection, no? Normally it takes you around 30 days. Then your operating cycle now is equal to 70 days. Okay? That is your operating cycle. Burayin na natin to. Kunyari maganda yung sulat ko. Ayan. Now, let's continue. However, the process of producing and selling product also includes the purchase of production inputs on account, which results in accounts payable. So, eto, no? From the date of purchase, this is, ayan, lugan natin yan. Okay, not all of the time this is purchased in terms of cash. Okay, pag minsan purchases are made on credit. So we also have to consider that. Hindi gaya nito, yung collection time natin, syempre you only collect in the form of cash. Take note, we're trying to compute for your cash conversion cycle. So, what do? The time it takes to pay the accounts payable, measured in days, is the average payment period. The operating cycle less the average payment period yields the cash conversion cycle. The formula for the cash conversion cycle is as follows. You have operating cycle less the average payment period, or also known as accounts payable deferral period. Okay, now let's go back to the previous slide. Dito na yung computation natin eh. So, it was defined that it's the time it takes to pay the accounts payable. So, that will be from the date of purchase, diba? Yan yung date of purchase natin. From the date of purchase up to the date of, let's say, payment. Kunyari dyan yan. Yan. From purchase to payment, let's say this is 50 days. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, from the date of payment up to the date of collection, ano yun? That's now your cash conversion cycle. This one is your average payment period. Okay, or simply payment period. Now, your CCC will be 70 days less 50 days. You now have ilan? You now have 20 days. That's the number of days, no? It takes a company, no, from the date of payment up to the date of collection. So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Okay, mula nung lumabas yung pera hanggang sa bumalik yung pera. And the shorter the cash conversion cycle, the better. Because if your money will return on the shortest period of time, it means that you don't have to maintain a high level of cash. Diba? So, ayun yun. Now, imagine if you can have a cash conversion cycle of negative. Hindi, ang saya-saya. Nauuna muna yung collection kesa sa payment. Assuming that you were able to find a supplier who is willing for a credit period of, let's say, 80 days. Imagine operating cycle of 70 and your average payment period is, let's say, 80 days. You will now have a cash conversion cycle of negative 10 days. Okay, so your collection will come before the payment. This is basically using other people's money. Di ba? Parang source of financing na yan. Kaya nakatipid po tayo sa cash. Ayan. If you have two companies, no? Assuming you have two companies, you have the same level of assets and liabilities, you have the same level of operation, no? Lahat pareho, but the only difference is that company A has a shorter cash conversion cycle. Aba, mas mataas yung profits ni A. Okay? Bakit ganon? Okay? If you have shorter cash conversion cycle, as I mentioned earlier, you you don't need a high level of cash. So you will have lower cash levels, which means, oh, wait lang, no? I'm referring to the cash level that is used for operation. So you can have the same level of cash, but okay, you will have lower cash that is assigned for your operations. So you now have more cash for other opportunities. So the excess cash can now be invested. Diba? So, mas mataas na ngayon yung profits natin kapag mas mababa yung cash conversion cycle. Aside from higher profits, okay, lower required cash for your operation. Anyway, let's continue. So, eto yan. Cash conversion cycle is equal to operating cycle less average payment period. Let's continue. Substituting for OC, we can see that the cash conversion cycle has three main components as shown in the following equation. Okay, average age of inventory, average collection period, and the average payment period. This is actually the main objective of working capital management, to reduce the cash conversion cycle, okay, so that you will increase your profits, okay, and at the same time, no, you'll be able to balance the risk involved. That's why most of the strategies involved in working capital management, okay, will focus on these three elements. Okay, so how do you reduce your cash conversion cycle? Well, you have to reduce the average age of the inventory. So how do you do that? You sell faster. You make better materials, okay? Or lesser investments in inventories, okay? Para mas mataas yung turnover natin. Aside from that, okay, you also have to reduce your average collection period. That's why you have to be cautious, okay, when extending credit to your customers. Okay, it's not enough that you're good in giving, good in collection, that's one, but you should also be good in extending credit, which means that, okay, you extend credit to those who can pay. Diba? So, ayun. And, okay, average payment period, as much as possible, okay, you want this to be a longer. That's why we have float management, okay? Your ability to stretch your accounts payable is actually another way, to say that, well, your ability to delay your payment. And that will be discussed in disbursement management. Okay, so, ganun lang yun. If you see a list of working capital strategies, you try to look at the objectives of these strategies. Most of the time, they are focused on these three elements. Now, let's have another example. Okay, so let's assume that we have the following data. From the purchase of raw materials on account, okay, on account. Sundan nga natin dito. Or check natin. So, this one is on account, okay, up to the collection of accounts receivable. That's 62.3 days, okay? So, if you're going to analyze this further, you can divide this into two parts. First, you have your average age of inventory, okay, which is 17.5, and your collection period, which is 44.8. Now, assuming that your average payment period is 51.2 days, okay, you simply deduct that from your 62.3 days, and you will now have your cash conversion cycle of 11.1 days. This means that, okay, it takes you around 11.1 days, okay, to convert your cash outflow to cash inflows. Is that favorable or unfavorable? It really depends on what is the industry standard. Sometimes, even if you don't know the industry standard, the changes, okay, of your cash conversion cycle can already indicate if that is favorable or unfavorable. Like for example, from 11.1 days and then you try to apply a strategy, no? Tapos after that, no, from 11.1 days, your cash conversion cycle became, let's say, 9 days na lang or 8 days na lang. Okay, so that is favorable. Okay, and it also indicates not the effectiveness of a strategy. If a working capital management strategy was not able to reduce the cash conversion cycle, aba, ibig sabihin, it's not effective. Okay po, so ayun. Aside from knowing how to compute the cash conversion cycle, no, it's better, no, hindi naman sa it's better, pero what counts most is that you should know how to use this in decision making and evaluating the performance of a company. Okay, to summarize, the shorter the cash conversion cycle, the better. Okay, question. Why is a shorter cash conversion cycle favorable? Well, number one, your cash outflow will be converted immediately to cash inflow, which means that you will need, no? Hindi naman say you will need, but there will be lower cash required for you to support your operations. Okay? And lower cash required to support your operations, will mean that you will have more cash, more excess cash available for investments naman, which will result to higher profits. Okay po? So, ayun. Now, let's continue. A permanent funding requirement is a constant investment in operating assets resulting from the constant sales over time. Seasonal funding requirement naman is an investment in operating assets that varies over time as a result of cyclic sales. And let's have an example. Parang blood pressure lang ito ni Ma'am Jazz. Shout out po sa dean natin. Ayan. Sa napakabait po nating dean. Okay, so ito yung kanyang blood pressure, kunyari, ayan, sa umaga, dyan siya, makeup, ayos-ayos ng table niya, okay, tapos pumasok si Mr. Erorita, tapos, good morning, Ma'am Jazz, narinig niya yung boses ko, ha? Ano ba yan? Bakit ano ba yan? Okay, so, joke lang. This is actually a graph on the funding requirement for operating assets. Now, take note, no, napaka-erratic yan. Okay, this is the requirement for your operating assets. Pag minsan mababa, pag minsan mataas. It really depends on the operations, no? Let's say, peak periods, yan, Christmas, marami kang mga customer. Okay, so mataas yung requirement para sa operation natin kasi you have to produce. More customers will buy your product, okay, which means more customers may be buying on credit. So your accounts receivable will increase, okay? You will need more cash to support that type of operation. So, tataas ngayon yung requirement. Okay, after ng peak periods, wala nang pera yung mga tao, bababa yung customers mo. Okay, so, ayun. Now, assuming this is the minimum requirement, no? That in the past, you never operated below 135,000, okay, in dollars. So, this one can be, can be referred to as your permanent requirement. This one right here, okay, sabi natin, this is the highest, no, the highest requirement so far. Okay, so this is now part, no, from that point to this point, this is now your seasonal need. Okay, so pag tinanong ka niyan, okay, if your total requirement is 1,125,000, okay, as the highest, and 135 is the minimum requirement. The difference is the seasonal. Okay, so that's 1,125,000 minus 135,000. You now have 990. Okay, And this is the average. Okay? Kung paano kinumpute yan, it could be on a moving average, daily average. Basta, in our quizzes or in our exams, ibibigay naman yung average requirement na yan. Okay? So, what's this? This is now your total requirement. Okay, 135. It will be between 135 and 125. The total seasonal requirement. Okay, so let's continue. Taran! Ba't siya bumabalik? Naglolo ko yata. Baka may multo. Feeling ko baka mali yung diniscuss ko. Kapag may mali, ayan, paki-comment na lang pala doon sa discussion box natin. Kasi pag may mali sa mga discussion, hindi na ako nag-e-edit. Ayan, mas maganda kapag i-comment nyo na lang tapos i-correct na lang natin pagdating sa discussion. Okay po? Okay, so, ayan, let's continue. Ayun, pwede na. Cash conversion cycle, comparing aggressive versus conservative seasonal funding strategies. So, an aggressive funding strategy, okay, is when the firm funds its seasonal requirements with short-term debt and its permanent requirements with long-term debt. So, paano po yun? Your permanent requirement, this one will be using long-term debt, long-term hanggang dito, and then this one, short-term. This is now known as your, going back, this is your aggressive, ulitin nga natin. Sobrang pangit naman na yan. Aggressive funding strategy or aggressive funding, aggressive funding strategy. Yung conservative naman, okay, this is a strategy which the firm funds both its seasonal and permanent requirements with long-term debt. So both, sabi niya. So mula dito, ayan, lahat yan will be long-term. Imagine, so yan yung i-invest mo. So, anong mangyayari ngayon dito? No? It will affect, of course, our profitability and the risk of the company. Tingnan ko lang, baka nandito sa next na slide. Okay, wala. Balik tayo dito. Let's just come up with another graph, no? Yung mas madali. Let's say that this is our graph. Okay. Tapos, eto, kunyari yung permanent requirement natin. Okay, and then, eto naman yung ating seasonal requirement. Iganyan ko na lang ganyan. This is now our seasonal requirement. Okay, so, pwedeng ganyan. Bakit, sir, kanina yung nasa first example natin, diretso lang. Bakit sa inyo ngayon pataas? Kunyari, long term yan. Okay. We can assume that the operations of the company is improving or expanding. Okay. So, if we are applying our aggressive funding strategy, this part right here, no? This part right here will be your long term. And then, this one right here will be your short term. Pero kapag conservative, lahat eto ngayon, lahat yan will be, okay, so yan. Lahat yan will be long term. Ano nga yung implication yan? Take note, at some point, no, you will have excess funds that are invested. Okay? So, what will happen if you have excess funds? O di okay lang, you have plenty of funds. Ganun lang yun. And that will affect our insolvency risk. The risk that you may not be able to pay your liabilities. Napakababa. Bakit? Kasi ang dami mong pera. Now, what if, okay, hindi ganyan yung nangyari. Ang ininvest mo ay hanggang dito lang. Okay? Okay. Mataas naman ngayon yung risk natin na baka hindi tayo makabayad. Just in case may kailangan tayong bayaran. O, di ba? So, ganon. So, what do you do? Okay? Anong ginagawa ng mga iba? Pag minsan, ang gagawin nila, okay, let's say we have the following graph. Let's try to come up with a balanced approach, okay, that our investment will be somewhere in the middle. Why? No? Even if this is the permanent requirement, okay, so hanggang dyan, this is the permanent requirement, we will invest, no, or we will fund this part right here using long-term. Ayan. Long-term sources of financing. Ba't hindi mo pa tinodo? Ganito kasi yan. So that, okay, if this is the case, if we have excess funds, we're going to invest that. Okay? At the time when the seasonal requirement, okay, picks up, okay, instead of using short-term debt lahat, no, hindi. What we are going to do is we try to liquidate the investment to cover the requirement, no, for ayan, for this one. Nasundan niyo po? Okay. And then, bababa na naman yung requirement. So, you will now have excess funds. Okay. So, let's try to invest that. At times that you need the money, okay, you're going to liquidate the investment and then you're going to use that. Okay, you're going to use that in your operations. Nasundan niyo po, sir, what if, no? This is the common questions that I get. Sir, what if, okay, we made an investment and then at the time that we need to support this level of operation, what if the investment is not enough to cover, no? Hanggang dyan lang yung kayang i-cover ng nitong part na to. What do we do with this part right here? Then that's the time you are going to support that, okay, using short-term funds. Okay po? So, ganun. Or vice versa, sir, what if this is too much? No? O di i-invest mo lang, i-liquidate lang natin yung kailangan mo. Okay, para yung excess, nag-earn pa rin. Ganun lang po yun. Okay po, so now you have your aggressive funding strategy. You have your conservative when everything is funded by long-term debt. And then you have the balanced strategy. Wherein, okay, some portion of your seasonal requirements is supported by your long-term debt. Ayun. Okay, so what about the cost of these strategies? Let's have an example. Bakit may cost pala? This is one of the questions. So, bakit siya may cost? Okay, take note, no, that these are funds that are tied up and there are opportunity costs involved, no? Like for example, a 1 million tied up in your cash, okay, should have been earning 8%. May 8% na sana yan eh. Kaya nga lang, ginamit mo sa operation. That is now your opportunity cost. And that is included in the cost, no? Cost of funding strategies. Here's an example. Okay, this company has a permanent funding requirement of $135,000 in operating assets and seasonal funding requirement that vary between 0 and 990. Parang familiar, di ba? Ito yung graph natin kanina eh. An average of 101,250. If Semper can borrow short-term funds, ayan, to support the seasonal funding siguro, no? At 6.25%. And long-term funds at 8% siguro for the permanent, no? And if can earn 5% on the investment of any surplus balances, then the annual cost of the aggressive, sabi niya. So we are computing for aggressive strategy. This means that your permanent, asa na yung permanent? Ayun, permanent funding requirement of 135, this one will be supported by long-term financing, while your seasonal, yung 990, average of 101,250, okay, will be supported by your short-term funds. Oh, yan. So what is now the cost? Now if you notice, mas mataas po yung rate ng long term kesa sa short term. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. So you simply multiply. Okay, so this means that the cost of the aggressive strategy is $17,128. Sir, what about earnings on surplus balance? There is no surplus balance. Why? Because if you remember, no, if this is our graph, yung permanent, long term yan. Yung seasonal, nangungutang ka lang based sa pangangailangan mo. Okay, so no excess. Okay. Now, here's an alternative approach. Okay, Samper can choose a conservative strategy under which surplus cash balance are fully invested. This surplus will be the difference between the peak need of 1,125,000 and the total need. Okay, so ano ba yung total need natin? Okay, which varies from 135 and 1,125,000 during the year. The cost of this strategy will be as follows. May short-term financing ba? Wala na. Why? Because, ayan, we are using the conservative strategy. Okay, all the requirement will be supported by long-term financing. Okay, so wala tayong short-term financing. Cost of long-term financing. So, you have 1,125,000. Okay, so yan yung uutangin natin. Okay, at 8%. But then, you will have, okay, you will have a surplus. Saan po nanggaling itong surplus na to? You remember 990? Ayan, your difference of the seasonal and the permanent. And then, you deduct, magkano na yung kanina? I think is it 101? Yes, it's 101, 250, no? 101, 250. Try nga natin, baka mapahiya ako. Siyempre, ito ay 759 minus 1 is 8, tapos ito ay magiging borrow. So 8 and 8. Yep, this is it, pansit. Ayun. Okay, so now you have a surplus which can be invested at 0.05, okay, or 5%. Okay po, so this is now the cost of your conservative strategy. So bakit binawas? Okay, kanina in the previous slide, dinagdag natin. Because these are both costs, no? Costs. Yeah. Well, this one, okay, this is the cost. But this one is your, earnings. So, ibabawas natin yan. Kinita mo yan sa sobra. Kumbaga, umutang ka ng malaki, tapos yung part na hindi mo ginamit, ininvest mo siya at 5%. Okay? Dito, wala kang kinita, kasi ang inutang mo lang, okay, ay yung eksaktong kayang-kaya mo. So why is this called the aggressive strategy? Well, because it's too risky, no? Since there is no surplus, okay, there's no surplus, it's possible that there may be an immediate need for money and you may not be able to support that or pay that. Kasi eksakto lang yung pera mo. Okay? Pero, the higher the risk, the higher the return. Okay? Now, we may not be talking about your return, pero yung effect kasi nito, the cost is lower. No? Here, the cost is only 17. Dito, conservative, okay? You may have an earning, but still, overall, the cost of the conservative strategy is higher. So, higher cost which means lower profit. So, mas mababa po yung return natin. But lower return, okay, we also have lower risk. The risk of insolvency. The risk that we may not be able to pay our near-term demands. Okay po? So, kunyari, nag-e-enjoy pa rin tayo. Let's continue. Strategies for managing the cash conversion cycle. The goal is to minimize the length of the cash conversion cycle. So I already mentioned this earlier, which minimizes negotiated liabilities. This goal can be realized through the use of the following strategies. Turn over inventory as quickly as possible without stockouts that result in lost sales. What is the effect of this? If your turnover is higher, this will result to lower average age in inventory. So naalala nyo kanina yung yung discussion natin. If we go back to that slide, okay, lower average age in inventory. Okay, so ayun. Collect accounts receivable as quickly as possible without losing sales from high-pressure collection techniques. Okay, so what will be the result of this? Okay, pag mas mababa yung turnover, pag mas mabilis, mas mababa yung turnover, mali yata. Pag mas mabilis yung turnover, mas mababa yung collection period natin, average collection period. If you have this, you will now have shorter operating cycle. Manage mail processing and clearing time to reduce them when collecting from customers. Okay, again, okay, this will result to lower collection period and to increase them when paying suppliers. This one will result to higher deferral period for accounts payable, which means, okay, mas mataas yung payment period natin. And the higher the payment period, you will now have lower cash conversion cycle. Pay accounts payable as slowly as possible without damaging the firm's credit rating. Okay, so, ayun. Or, sabi kasi, without damaging the firm's credit rating. Sa akin naman, you pay accounts payable as slowly as possible without being unethical. Diba? So, ayun. We're not just, concerned, okay, with our credit rating. You should also be concerned, with the well-being, of your suppliers. Alam mo na nga na, although, you are allowed to pay after, let's say, or after 60 days or within 60 days. But then the supplier is asking maybe you could pay earlier because we need this money to support our operations. Abay, bakit hindi? Kumakatulong ka naman. Now, take note, okay, most of these are measured in terms of numbers or in money. Pero still, when we make decisions, we still have to consider other qualitative factors. Factors that cannot be measured in terms of money. Like, for example, your relationship with your suppliers. Delay ng payment. Kay kawawa naman si supplier. Baka mawalan ka ng supplier. You have the ability to issue checks, okay, that can be immediately encashed, okay, in the bank. Kaya nga lang, ginagawa mo, you issue a check, okay, whose bank is closed during Saturdays and Sundays. And then, ang gagawin mo, you issue it in the during Friday afternoon, kunyari, yung style ng iba, para 2 days float din yun. Yung mga ganung bagay ba? Aside from the relationship with your supplier, you also have your relationship with your customers, Yes, as much as possible, you want to speed up the collection, Pero kung pwede mo namang iwasan yung demand letter kaagad or collection agencies kaagad, you might lose these customers kasi. So still, you have to strike a balance. Ayun lang naman. Siguro yun yung kulang sa mga textbook natin. Parang napaka black and white lang. Ito yung mga tamang strategies kasi, improve profits, okay, improve this and that. Okay, parang kulang sa emphasis, pagdating sa sa mga ethical issues, ganon. Okay, yung mga qualitative factors. Let me know in the discussion section, of this topic. Anyway, let's continue. Let's talk about inventory management. So, kanina, we discussed the cash conversion cycle, okay, and we relate that to the major objective of working capital management, okay. To reduce the cash conversion cycle means that, okay, you are able to speed up your collections, speed up your sales, defer your payment, okay? And that will result to lower cash required, for your operation. So, yun ang gusto natin. Now, let's go to the details. Let's talk about inventory management. Differing viewpoints about appropriate levels, for the inventory. Inventory levels commonly exist among firms, finance, marketing, manufacturing, and purchasing managers. Okay? Ano yung mga kailangan nating tandaan? For the financial manager, sabi niya, manager's general disposition toward inventory level is to keep them low. So, as much as possible, gusto niya mababa daw yung inventory. Why? To ensure that the firm's money is not being unwisely invested in excess resources. O, diba? So, wag kang bili ng bili. Hindi porke naka-sale, purchase ka ng purchase. Sayang, we can use the money in other aspects of our operations. Ganun ang financial manager. For marketing naman, on the other hand, they would like to have a large inventory in the firm's finished products. Okay? Why? Para kapag merong sales naman, meron silang ibebenta. Pag may customer, meron silang ibebenta. So, that's what I mean. Okay? Siyempre, they just want to avoid opportunity cost. Okay? When you have a customer who is willing to buy your product and then you don't have the inventories for sale, sayang yung opportunity. So, that's a lost opportunity. Next, the manufacturing manager's major responsibility is to implement the production plan so that it results in the desired amount of finished goods for or of acceptable quality available on time at a low cost. So, for the manufacturing manager, okay, number one, he wants to have a high quality of inventory at the lowest cost possible. So, hindi niya minention kung gusto ba niya ng madaming inventory or maliit na inventory. Para sa akin lang, dapat maganda yung output and they should be, especially the raw materials, the raw materials should be available at the time when they are needed, and that the finished goods are available at the time of sale. Okay, so siguro for the raw materials, they want to have a higher stock for raw materials, okay, so that the risk of stock out will be avoided. Siguro yun yung isa na kailangan nating tandaan. Aside from that, okay, the quality, not just the finished goods, but also the quality of the raw materials is also important because this will also affect the process, done in the plant or in the factory. Imagine if one of your raw materials, kunyari, may magandang raw material ng hollow blocks, Let's talk about hollow blocks. Hahawakan mo palang nag-crack na. O di ba? Nakakainis. O kaya yung mga kahoy, nagle-layout ka palang, uumpisahan mo palang lagariin na ganyan, nasira na. So, there are a lot of resources and time involved that will be wasted, if the quality of your materials are poor. Okay, for purchasing manager, the concern solely is with the raw materials inventories. What about raw materials inventories? Well, you should be able to make this available, at that time of need. Okay, but sometimes they are being evaluated based on their ability to purchase, and pogi points kasi, it's considered to be favorable if your purchasing manager was able to purchase raw materials at a lower cost. Siyempre, the purchasing is his responsibility. Okay, so the cost of the purchase will be part of his performance evaluation. Kaya ang ginagawa nila pag minsan, even if it's not needed, they try to buy in bulk just to take advantage of discounts. So, that's one, Kaya away sila ngayon ni financial manager. Why did you purchase this much when this is only what is needed in the factory? Well, I want to take advantage of the discount. Or sometimes, okay, they want to buy what is available, okay, even if the quality is poor, or they tend to buy raw materials that have poor quality because it's cheaper. So away naman sila, no, with the manufacturing manager because why did you buy this, no? It's poor. Hindi maganda yung quality. Then sasabihin ng purchasing manager, well, it's cheap kasi. Okay, so yun, may mga conflict talaga dyan. Yun lang naman sinasabi ng slide na to, that these personnel will have different viewpoints about the inventory management. Anyway, let's just continue. Under inventory management, you have the ABC inventory system. This is when your inventory is classified into 3 groups, A, B, and C. That's why it's called ABC inventory system, which is different from ABC, no, na activity-based costing. This is just ABC inventory system, a method of classifying your inventories. So you have Group A, Group B, and Group C. For Group A, this includes items with the largest dollar investment. Typically, this group consists of 20% of the firm's inventory items, but 80% of its investment in inventory. Okay, so anong ibig sabihin nun, no? It consists 20% of the firm's inventory items, but 80% of its investment in inventory. Maiintindihan nyo yan when you go to type B and type C. For type B, these are the next largest investment in inventory. And then the C group consists of large number of items that require a relatively small investment. Okay, so ano yung 20-80 na yan? Okay, 20, it refers to volume, but 80% pertains to the value. Nakuha ninyo yon? Okay, now to understand that better, no, let's compare A and C. An example of C group is your noodles. Noodles, your canned goods, soy sukapatis, the basic commodities. Normally, they are fast-moving consumables. Kunyari sa grocery, no, I'm talking about a grocery, a supermarket. Okay? So, the investment value is very low. Mura lang naman tong mga to. Okay, but they are composed of, most of your inventories pala is composed of this one. Mura, pero madami. Now, the opposite of that is A group. Okay, typically consists of 20%. Pag minsan mas mababa pa sa 20%. Okay, but 80% of the investment in inventory. Like for example, in a supermarket, no, one of the sections is, kunyari, ano bang maganda? Yung mga mamahalin, pero konti lang. Like your liquors. Di ba, mahal yata ng alak. I'm not just talking about your basic San Miguel beer or yung gin. Okay? I'm talking about yung mga whiskey, yung mga wines, yung mga premium wines, yung mga black label, mga ganun. Hindi ako makapag-isip ng example kasi hindi naman ako mahilig sa alak. Pero you get the point, di ba? Mahal yung mga binebenta nilang mga ganito, pero konti lang yung mini-maintain na inventory. Okay? So, ganun po. Kunyari, punta ka sa SM, no? SM grocery. Ayan, dun sa grocery ng SM. Diba dun sa grocery nila, may kasama silang mga TV, mga appliances. Diba? So, hindi lang basta grocery items, diba? So, yun yung mga group A. No, and then group C, eto na yung mga mga consumables, sabon, noodles. So I hope na intindihan niyo yung group A and group C. In between group A and group C, you now have the B group. It's the next largest investment in the inventory. Now take note, this depends from one entity to another. Kunyari yung alak na example natin kanina, your wines and liquors, no? In some companies or in some entities, this could be classified as A companies or A inventories. But for some, maybe this is just part of the B group. Okay po? Now, let's continue. The inventory group of each item determines the item's level of monitoring. So, the A group items receive the most intense monitoring because of the high dollar investment. Okay, while for C group, diretso ako sa C, are monitored with unsophisticated techniques such as the two-bin method. An unsophisticated inventory monitoring technique that involves reordering inventories when one of two bins is empty. Okay, so ano ibig sabihin nito? Letter A, dahil mas mahal siya, okay, you need something that is more complex, no? Ayan. May isang term tayo dun eh. Mas complicated. Ganun ba? To monitor the movement, no? When we say movement, sale, and purchase. Okay, normally we use the perpetual inventory system for this type of inventory. Imagine, no, kapag yung let's say, isang black label ang na shoplift as compared to, let's say, yung gin, ayan, or yung patis, yung na shoplift, ang laki ng difference nila, di ba? O kung noodles pa yung i-compare mo, patay. So, pag minsan noodles, ang style lang nila dyan, may mga dalawang rack. Ganun, dalawang rack. O kaya tatlong rack. Kapag naubos na yung first na level, okay, or second na level, or pag iisang level na lang yung naiwan, hey, that's our reorder point. Bili na tayo. So, ganun yung mga small na groceries. Okay? So, parang ganun din yung two-bin method. You have two containers, ganun, pwedeng dalawang aisle. Okay, pero dalawang containers, siguro yung isa mas malaki, yung isa mas maliit, or siguro pareho lang sila ng size. Pag naubos na yung isa, that's the time you have to purchase. Okay? Para pag eksaktong naubos yung pangalawang bin, okay, mapupuno na or darating na yung in-acquire natin. Okay? So, ayun po. So, that's your two-bin method. May nag-question sa akin nun Sir, if we are going to install, CCTV cameras, okay, are we going to point them, in the Class A, or are you going to point the CCTV in your Class C? Okay, so, napaisip ako. Normally, I will say sa Class A kasi mas mahal siya, di ba? Pero actually, when we talk about CCTV, it also depends on the location. Because, for example, if we're trying to catch, shoplifters, pwede kasing kuha sila ng alak and then pupunta sila sa corner na kung saan mga noodles lang yung nandun tapos walang camera tapos dun nila itatago. Diba? So, ayun siguro. CCTV, yes, they are used to monitor your inventories. Pero most of the time, it's the location that was considered and not just the value of the inventories. Okay po. The large dollar investment A and B group items suggest the need for a better method of inventory management than the ABC system. This one is part of your assignment, Economic order quantity. Please read on this because we have a separate discussion on Eoq. But I'm I'm going to introduce this in this presentation. Eoq, or Economic Quantity Model, is an inventory management technique for determining an item's optimal order size. Okay, optimal means the best. This is different from maximum When we talk about maximum, okay, yung pinakamataas. When we say optimal, okay, yung pinaka-efficient. Okay, ayan. Which is the size that minimizes the total of its order cost and carrying cost. The Eoq model is an appropriate model for management of A and B group items. Okay. Eoq assumes that the relevant cost of inventory can be divided into order cost and carrying cost. Okay. wait lang, as of this point, I want to emphasize one thing. We are not saying that the inventory cost can be divided only into two types, the order cost and carrying cost. We are referring to relevant inventoriable cost. So aside from the cost of your inventory, okay, there are other inventoriable costs kasi, like your ordering cost and your carrying cost. What is an order cost? Okay. These are fixed, well, most of the time fixed, okay? Clerical cost of placing and receiving an inventory order. And they are not affected by the volume of inventory that you order. For example, the simplest type or example of order cost is your texting cost. Text, when you send a message. Magkano ba? Sabihin na natin it's 1 peso. So whether you texted your, let's say, your supplier, okay, with 10,000 units versus 1 million units, the cost of texting is still 1 peso. So it's fixed in nature. Normally, these costs, they are not affected by the volume of your order. Now, carrying costs are variable per unit of holding an item in inventory for a specific period of time. My favorite example here is refrigeration cost, for ice cream manufacturers. May mga warehouse yan na nirerentahan pag minsan. Let's say your warehouse, or a certain warehouse refrigerated warehouse can house, let's say, 10,000 gallons. Kung lang, 500 gallons. Ganun na lang para madali. O 500 gallons, okay? And monthly will be, let's say, isip lang tayo ng 5,000 pesos for 500 gallons. So if you produce, let's say, 1,000 gallons, so you need 2 refrigerated warehouse. So times 2 na. Okay, so ganun. Sir, di po ba ang rent ay fixed? Yes, pero for that type of example, parang step fixed siya. In long term, parang variable kasi habang mas maraming kailangan mong i-store, mas marami kang rooms na kailangan na refrigerated, then mas mataas yung refrigeration cost natin. Okay, so that's just one of the example. Carrying cost, and then you have taxes, pag minsan security and housekeeping may also be considered as part of your carrying cost. Now, Eoq Model analyzes the trade-off between order cost and carrying cost to determine the order quantity that minimizes the, take note, it's the total. Okay, total inventory or inventoriable costs. Okay, some things you have to remember. Okay, for the formula, S for the usage in units, O for the order cost per order, C carrying cost per unit per period, and Q, this is the order quantity in units. The order cost can be expressed as the product of the cost per order and the number of orders, because the number of orders equals the usage during the period divided by the order quantity. Okay, so usage, or also known as your demand. Okay, the order cost can be expressed as follows. So O for the cost per order, and then SQ, that's the usage divided by the quantity for each order. Okay. Now, let's just have an example, let's say that ito kasi per period. Let's talk about in 1 month. In 1 month, let's say you are able to sell 10,000 units of product X. Okay, and every time you order 500 units every time na bibili ka. So, ilang beses kang bumili sa isang taon? How many times are you going to purchase in 1 month pala? I'm sorry, this is a monthly example. So, you simply divide. Okay, so you have 10,000 divided by 500. So, mga ilan yun? 20 ba? Is it 20? Tinamad na akong maghanap ng ng calculator, pero feeling ko it's 20. It's as good as 100 divided by 5, di ba? So you have 20 times. So you order 20 times in one period. And every time you order, let's say you spend, para madali lang yung mathematics natin, 10 pesos per order. Okay, so you multiply that by 10. So your total ordering cost is now 200 pesos. Ching! Diba? So, anong ibig sabihin nito? English kasi nakakainis, diba? If you order more in volume, you will order less in frequency. So imagine if you instead of ordering 500 units, you order, let's say, 1,000 units, o di 10 times ka na lang mag-order, di ba? So 10 times 10 magiging 100 pesos na lang yung ordering cost mo for one period. Nasundan po? Okay? But if you order less, in volume, instead of ordering 500 units, you just order 100 units, mas madalas kang mag-order ngayon yan. So, ilang beses kang mag-order sa isang period? That's 10,000 divided by 100. So, that's 100 times? Tama ba? So, that will be 100 times. 100 times 10 pesos. So, you will now have 1,000. Okay po? So, yun lang naman yung ibig sabihin yan. Anyway, if you have the need to pause the video, please feel free to do so. Ayan. Baka kailangan na ninyong mag-break kasi I think the running time as of this point is already more than 1 hour. Now, let's continue. And we have more slides to go. Still under inventory management, the carrying cost is defined as the cost of carrying a unit of inventory per period multiplied by the firm's average inventory. Okay, the average inventory is the order quantity divided by 2. So this is your average inventory. Order quantity divide that by 2. This is in the absence of beginning inventory or your safety stock. Because in accounting, hindi lang naman sa accounting, but even in finance, most of the time, if we talk about average inventory, average AR, average real account, the formula is the beginning balance plus the ending balance, divide that by 2. Okay po. And normally, the beginning balance without the purchase, ito yung magiging 0 natin. If you don't have any safety stock. Tapos pag nag-purchase ka na at the end of the period, assuming na hindi mo pa siya nabenta, ayan, so you will now have yung pinurchase natin na quantity. So if this one is 0 without safety stock, okay, that will be quantity divided by 2. So that's the explanation, for the average inventory. Some will say the ending inventory should be 0 because the beginning will be your purchase. Pwede rin naman, still, if this one is 0, okay, and this is your purchase quantity, you still end up with Q divided by 2, okay, as your average inventory in the absence of your safety stock. Yan. Now, because inventory is assumed to be depleted at a constant rate, thus, carrying cost can be expressed as follows. Ano ulit ito? This is your average inventory times the carrying cost. Normally, it's stated on a per unit basis. Now, the firm's total cost of inventory is simply adding the 2. Ano po ulit ito? This is now your ordering cost, and this one, this is your carrying cost. Okay? Now, para hindi mo makalimutan yan, tick, tak, tok. Pinagbabaliktad ko lang tick, tak, tok. That one. Okay, this is your total inventoriable cost. This is your total annual carrying cost. And this one now is your total ordering cost. Inventoriable cost, annual carrying cost, ordering cost. It's basically the same. Ginawan ko lang na ganyan para madaling i-memorize. And this is now the basic formula for EOQ, no? If you try to put that together, yung mga yung mga earlier formulas natin, and then try to arrive, okay, at Q, okay, and you'll have the following formula. May kwento yan, pero since this is not math, no, I'm not going to show you how this formula is arrived. Basta yan yung formula, okay? Tiwala na lang. It's 2 times. Saan nanggaling yung 2? Actually, pag nag-derive ka, nanggaling siya doon. Pero tama na nga. Okay, 2 times S times O times C. Where S is your demand, okay, demand or yung usage natin for a given period. O is your ordering cost and C is your carrying cost. Ako naman, okay, that's the square root of 2C. Ganun na lang kasi tamad akong mag-isip eh. Okay, 2 times the annual demand or periodic demand times the ordering cost divided by carrying cost, you get the square root. Okay, the reorder point is the point at which to reorder an inventory. This is normally expressed as days of lead time times daily usage. Let's try to discuss that. Your days of lead time is actually from the date of order up to the time the inventory will arrive, no? So, for example, yung mga naglalasada dyan, yung mga nag-online purchase. If you try to purchase and check out an item, normally, it will be indicated there. It will be delivered 2 days, no? 2 days from the date of purchase. So that is now your lead time. Sometimes, okay, you will be given a range. Okay, it will be delivered 14 to 21 days. That means that the normal lead time is 14 days and the maximum lead time is 21 days. Okay, they may not give you the number of days, but they may provide you a way to compute for the lead time, no? Like, they may give you the date, okay? It will arrive, it will arrive on Monday, and May 31, pwede ganun. Or may arrive at Monday 31, the earliest, and June 5, okay, the latest. So now you have the minimum, the normal lead time, and you have the maximum lead time. Very easy to compute. Okay, what is daily usage? This is how much you are using every day. So you have S or D. In this slide, okay, we are using S, so for consistency, burahin ko. Nasanay kasi ako sa D for the demand. So you have S divided by, okay, divided by the, sabi na, number of operating days, no? Number of operating days. Pag minsan binibigay naman yan. I've seen some books, no, na ang formula nila ay lead time divided by the lead time usage. So kumbaga parang if your lead time is 10 days and within 10 days you are using 100 units, so that's 100 divided by 10, okay, then that's now your daily usage. Pero why are you going to use that approach? O di given na yung kinompute mo, parang pinaikot mo lang. Ayun. Now, because lead times and usage rates are not precise, most firms hold safety stock. Now, there are different ways on how to compute for your safety stock. But what is safety stock? This is extra inventory that is held to prevent stockouts of important items. Now, your safety stock can be based on the difference of your lead time. No? For example, your normal lead time is 10 days and the maximum lead time is 15 days. No? For example, normally the products can be delivered after 10 days. But then if there are some fortuitous events, yung mga unforeseen events, ganun umaabot sila ng 5 days. Okay, so ayun, you have to store some safety stock which is good for the difference of your lead time. Okay, that will be 15 and 10 days. Okay, some would like to compute, no, safety stock based on the difference of your consumption or usage. Like for example, normally the demand for a day or the demand for one period or during the lead time is, let's say, 20 units, but then sometimes it peaks to 25 units per day. Yung mga ganun. Normally 20 per day, pero pag minsan nagiging 25 per day. So to avoid stockouts because of the fluctuation in the demand, okay, your safety stock can be based on the difference of the normal usage and maximum usage. So let me repeat that. For safety stock, dalawa yan, it could be based on the difference of your lead time and it could be based on the difference of your usage. Now, for some who are extremely conservative, okay, they are going to consider the difference, okay, in the lead time and the difference in the usage. And that is now the maximum safety stock. Pag minsan may buffer pa sila. Okay, pero ayun lang naman. Anyway, there's a separate discussion for that. Now, to continue, you have Max Company, a producer of dinnerware, has a group inventory item that is vital to the production process. This item costs 1,500 and Max uses 1,100 units of the item per year. Max wants to determine its optimal order strategy for the item. To calculate the EOQ, we need the following inputs. Order cost per order, that's 150. So that's now your ordering cost. This is now your carrying cost. Okay, by process of prostitution. Ching! Is this your demand? Okay, 1,100 units. Sarap ng ganito, hindi na nagka-calculator kasi nakalagay na. Anyway, before I forget, I'd like to give credit for the source of these materials. Okay, this came from... Shucks, nakalimutan ko na. This came from Gitman, from Lawrence Gitman ba? Basta ka sa Pearsons. Ayun. Anyway, let's continue. What's this 41 units? This is the number of units that you're going to purchase so that you can minimize your carrying cost and at the same time optimize the ordering cost. Now, it's not maximize, it's optimize your ordering cost. Okay, which will result to the lowest carrying cost. So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Okay, it's not the cost of inventory. This is just the inventoriable cost because 1,500 should be included in the cost of the inventory. Okay, we'll have an example. Wait lang. Do I have an example here? Sige. I-discuss muna natin tong part na to. The reorder point for Max depends on the number of days. Okay, Max operates per year. Assuming that Max operates 250 days per year and uses 1,100 units of this item. Okay, per year yan ha. Daily usage is now 4.4 units. So that's 1,100 divided by 250. So per day, they use 4.4. If its lead time is 2 days, okay, so that's the normal lead time. Wala siyang maximum lead time, wants to maintain a safety stock 4 units. How these 4 units was arrived at, I do not know. It's already given in the problem. The reorder point for this item will be 4.8 units. That will be, 2 times 4.4. Why? Because lead time is 2 days. Okay. So, it takes 2 days for the inventory or for the order to arrive. And every day, you use 4.4. So, the reorder point should be 8.8. Now, when your inventory is at 8.8, you should buy now. No? So that after 2 days, pag naubos na, it will arrive. Okay, yung purchase mo will arrive. I'm not saying that the acquisition should be at 8.8. I'm just saying that when your inventory levels are down to 8.8, that's the time for you to buy. But wait, there's more. Okay, that is when we are not maintaining safety stock. But if you want to maintain safety stock, you have to add your safety stock and your total reorder point is now 12.8. Or 13 units. Okay? Sabi niya kasi, however, orders are made only in whole units. So the order is placed when the inventory falls to 13 units. Ayan. So when your inventory is down to 13 units, it's time for you to order. After 2 days, okay, your order will arrive. Also, after 2 days, the remaining 13 units, okay, may have already been used. Actually, it's just 8.8 pala. May iwan na 4. Let's try to understand that further. Okay. Taran! Kunyari, nag-enjoy ka pa rin. Nag-acquire ka. Now, take note, in this example, no, let's just ignore your EOQ muna. So, you just acquired, no? Sige na. Let's assume that you ordered at EOQ, which is at 41. 41. Okay, so you have your operations, 41 will be used or sold, and you are maintaining 4. Okay, 4 as your safety stock. You want your order to arrive when your inventories are down to 4, right? Okay, so you want to know where or when are you going to order. Actually, your reorder point will answer the question, when are you going to order? Okay, so you will order when your inventory is down at 12.8 or 13 units. So, ano 12.8? Tada! Okay, so let's say that's 12.8. Order ka na sa supplier mo. After 2 days, your purchase of 41 units will now arrive. Okay, at 12.8 or 13 units, you made your order and then it did not arrive. After 2 days, you still have 4. Okay, you still have 4 for your safety stock. So after that, you will now have 41. So may difference na, no? Okay, na 4. Okay, this one will now be at 37. That is what will happen to your inventory, to the level of your inventory if this 4 units of safety stock was used. Which means that next time you purchase at 12.8, you should be buying at 45. So that, okay, assuming nothing will happen and they will arrive on time, no, after 2 days, ganyan siya, it will be restored back to, actually, it's not 41 na, that's the acquisition 45 pala yan. Okay, the purchase, the difference of these two will be 41. Okay po, so that's how it works, okay? This is your reorder point. The point when you have to make an order. Okay, that is your safety stock. Assuming that you ordered at reorder point and it arrived at 2 days, your safety stock will not be affected. It will now be restored back to 45. Okay, and you only acquired 41, di ba? Ganun lang. Now, going back, anyway, this is already just in time. Let's go back to this example. Okay, at 41 units, okay, this is when, ganito kasi yan normally, okay, if we try to analyze your ordering cost, for some books, it's fixed. Some books, it's fixed. Pag ganyan siya. Okay, pero pag minsan it's step fixed cost. Okay, so pwedeng pataas yan ng pataas. Okay, mali. Sorry. Ulit. Ganyan pala yan, ganyan. Pwedeng fixed na ganyan, pero normally, dahil nga gusto mo siyang i-optimize, okay, ganun naman yung behavior ng fixed cost, right? Okay, it will be decreasing at a rate, no? It may be decreasing at a decreasing rate, okay, which is normal, okay? Kasi nga, fixed cost, no? The more you buy, okay, the lower will be your fixed cost per unit. Now, for variable cost naman, ayan. For variable cost, ganyan siya. This is actually your carrying cost, and this is now your ordering cost. Ayan. In some books, para mas malinaw yung depiction na hindi naman masama, that's your carrying cost. And this one now is your ordering cost. Ay, mali. It's the opposite. This is the carrying cost and this is now your ordering cost. Okay, pero dito tayo. Now, if you add the two, no? The two, okay, paliit yan ng palitas palaki ng ganyan. Ano yan? This is now your total total inventoriable cost. Ganyan natin para mas madali yung tandaan. This is your TOC and TAC. Ayan, tick-tack-tock. Total inventoriable cost is equal to your total annual carrying cost plus your total ordering cost. The lowest point right here is actually the point where your TAC and TOC intersects, no? And that is now 41 units. Hindi ako magaling mag-drawing, no? Kaya yung iba, ganyan yung ginagawa nilang approach. Tcharan! Okay, para maitapat nilang ganon. Okay, 41. What happened? May nagamit yata ako. Ayun. So, this is now 41. At 41 units. And if you try to compute, for your total ordering cost and total carrying cost at 41, they will be equal. Okay? So, how do you do that? Total annual carrying cost. If you go back to the previous slide, okay, ayun, that's your total annual carrying cost. See the carrying cost times your average inventory. Okay, assuming that there is no safety stock, ganun na lang para mas madali. Assuming there is no safety stock. So, your average inventory now will be 41 divided by 2. You multiply that by your carrying cost per unit, which is 200. Okay. And then you compute for your ordering cost. Okay. Your ordering cost, okay, if you go back to the previous slide, this is how many times you are going to order. Okay, siya po ito. Times the ordering cost. Okay, kunyari, napaka-energetic nating lahat. The ordering cost is now 150. And then the demand, you have 1, ganyan, divided by 41. This is how many times you're going to order times 150. That's now your total ordering cost. They should be almost the same, no? Tama ba? Tingnan ko nga kung kakayanin. 41 divided by 2, that will be 20.5. 20.5 times 200. That will be 41,000. I'm just guessing. 41,000 or 4,100. Hanap nga tayo ng calculator. Sige, i-compute nyo nga. Okay, ako ay nagko-compute sa aking cellphone. So, you have 41 divided by 2 equals 20.5 times 200. So, it's 4,100. Okay, kanya nag-enjoy pa rin ako. 1,100 divide that by 41. So, you get 26.829. Parang ganyan. Kunyari, well, mathematically, that's correct. Pero pag bigyan natin, you multiply that by 150. And you will get... Saan na? Bakit ganun? It's 4,024.30. Okay, so bakit hindi daw siya nagkapareho? It has something to do with the computation of 41, okay? Because you have 2 times, ulitin natin yan, 2 times 1,100, okay, times 150, okay, we divide divide that by 200 equals, okay, 1650. Now let's see, where can I find my square root? Equals. Okay, so hindi po siya buo, diba? Now, parang ano siya, parang 40.62, ganun. Kung hindi sana ito butal, okay, if this is the exact amount, you will also have the exact amount for your annual carrying cost and your ordering cost. Now let's just assume that they are equal, no? Going back to this formula. Okay? To this graph. Let's assume that you are not allowed to buy at 41 units. Instead, you can only buy at, let's say, an amount divisible by 5. Okay, so by 5 lang. So you can only buy at 40. Okay, you can only buy at 40, or you can only buy at 45. Now, if you buy at 40, you will expect that there will be a lower carrying cost. Okay, but since you just buy at 40, you will be buying more frequently. So you will have higher ordering cost. Okay, and that will result to a total carrying cost which is higher than the total of this 8,200, 8,100 plus. So it will be higher. Ganon. But if you buy at 45 units, ganon din, your total inventoriable cost will still be higher. Okay, so that's how you use your EOQ. You don't have to be strict. Oh, I was able to compute at 41 units, so I will just buy at 41 units. Okay, what if they sell you per case, no, and not per piece? So by hundreds lang, kunyari. So you have to make your decision by comparing. Okay, if I buy at, let's say, 40 versus if I buy at 45, which of these two will result to a lower total inventoriable cost? Okay po. So, ayun. Anyway, that's your assignment, no? You try to compute. What if I'm going to buy at 35? Or let's say, what if I'm going to buy at 35, and what if I'm going to buy at 45? What will happen to my total annual carrying cost? What will happen to my total ordering cost? And what will happen to my total inventoriable cost? Okay, so let's continue. Let's talk about just in time, okay? This is actually a philosophy, no? Just in time philosophy daw yan. Okay, is an inventory management technique that minimizes inventory investment by having materials arrive at exactly the time they are needed for production. Okay, and because of that, you'd be able to minimize your investment in inventory. Why? Because you will not be maintaining safety stock. That's number one. Okay, hindi mo na siya i-store. Okay, a just-in-time system uses no or very little safety stock. And this one requires extensive coordination, no, among firms, employees, suppliers, shipping companies, okay? Ayun, so that they'll be able to make the materials arrive on time. And if there are failures, okay, it may result to shutdown. So, medyo risky siya. Likewise, a just-in-time system requires high-quality parts from suppliers, okay, so that, okay, this will not affect the speed of production. Okay po? So, ayun, so that's your just-in-time, no? There are a lot of discussions about just-in-time, especially when we go to management accounting services. Okay, sometimes this is known as your pull approach. Okay, it's not only when you make the materials available on time at the time of production, but you should be able to produce, no, your finished goods at the time of sale. That's also part of just-in-time. And this can only be possible, no, if we are using MRP? No, if we are using ERP. I think I'm going to discuss that later. Okay, some trends, no, on our practice in inventory management, you have RFID. Ano ba yung RFID? Paki-google nyo na lang. Okay? It has something to do with radio frequency. Baka yun yung radio frequency ID. I'm not really sure. Ito pag yung nag-grocery ka tapos may dadaan na ganyan na product doon sa tapat ng cashier, yung toot, yun, di ba? O kaya pag lumabas ka, hindi mo nabayaran yung binili mo, tutunog siya. Okay, so, ayun, it's used, no, for inventory monitoring, okay? Not only upon sale, no, but also at the point of purchase. Okay, so that's your RFID. Okay, ginagamit siya sa POS. Ito na, you have MRP, also known as MRP1, and then you have MRP2, and then you have your ERP. What are these? These are computerized systems, no? Or these are features that are integrated, no, in an application or in a program, no, used for managing our inventories. So what is MRP1 or simply MRP? This is your materials requirement planning. Okay, this is actually a technique that applies EOQ, and the focus is more on sales, no, more on sales and the acquisition and purchase, no, of our products. Not only our merchandise, but if you're into manufacturing, also your raw materials. Okay, so ayun. Now, aside from sales and purchase, no, if you try to integrate now the functions, no, from other departments, yung top 5, hindi top 5, may ibang term doon eh. Yung 5 na pinaka-importante, no, from finance, accounting, marketing, engineering, and manufacturing, if you try to integrate that now together with acquisition and sales, actually may isa pa. Dapat kasama din yung research and development. But anyway, if you try to integrate them into one application or one program, you now have MRP2, your manufacturing resource planning. Now, if you try to integrate that again, no, with the programs used, no, by your customers or by your suppliers, you now have your ERP. Okay, this is a computerized system, okay, that integrates external information, okay, coming from suppliers and customers. O, diba? Very easy to memorize. MRP1, okay, for materials alone. MRP2, if you try to integrate, okay, the different departments in the company. Okay, and then MRP3, it's not MRP3. You have ERP if you try to integrate the information naman coming from outside the company. And normally that will come from your customers or from your suppliers. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, inventory pa lang yung natapos natin. Let's go to accounts receivable management naman. Okay. This is the second component of cash conversion cycle. Okay? Kasama yung AR sa computation ng average collection period kasi. Now, the average collection period has two parts. Okay? You have the time of the sale and then the time when the payment is mailed until the firm has collected the funds in its bank account. The objective of managing accounts receivable is to collect accounts receivable as quickly as possible without losing sales from high-pressure collection techniques. Accomplishing this goal encompasses 3 topics. You have credit selection and standards, you have the credit terms, and you have your credit monitoring. Now, before we go to the next slide, punta muna tayo dito sa 2 parts, sabi niya. Actually, lahat naman ng nandito, if you remember your cash conversion cycle and your operating cycle, okay, each of the elements, you have your sales period, collection period, you have your payment period. I said period, so it's not M. Ayan. Each of these has 2 parts, no? For the sales period, or your average age in inventory, Okay? What are these two parts? Yung dalawang activity, okay? From the date of purchase up to the date of sale, okay? For collection period, from the date of sale, okay, up to the date of collection. Okay, so yan yung mga activity kung tawagin natin, which is normally measured in terms of turnover. Diba? If you remember financial statement analysis, for payment period, you have, ano yung activities mo? You have the date of purchase up to the date of payment. Okay, so from there, these activities now will now be the, will now be the basic parts of each of these elements. Ganun dapat yung pagkakaintindi natin dyan. Okay, so for the collection period, okay, two activities, you have the sale and collection. Okay, now let's continue. What are credit standards? These are the firm's minimum requirement for extending credit to a customer. And normally, we use the 5 C's of credit. No? Actually, ang dami yan. You have credit scoring. Okay? You have credit background investigation. Okay? Those are the activities, and then from there you now set your credit standards. If you were able to pass these standards, pwede ka na nilang pautangan. Pero ang major concern natin in our credit standards is the 5 C's of credit. Now, as of this point, I just want to emphasize that all of these are considered, but we're not saying that all of these should be present at all times. Okay. If you are asked what is the most important C, number 1, palagi sinasagot is the character. Diba? Pag minsan kahit wala yung apat, but if the person has the character to pay, based on history, okay, pag may utang talagang ginagawa niya ng paraan para magbayad, pwedeng bayaran ito, pwedeng pautangan ito. Okay, so ayun. Okay, and then it's better if they also have the capacity to pay. Now, when we say capacity to pay, we are not just referring to the existing assets, because the existing assets, okay, is actually part of the capital. Capacity is actually your ability to earn. Yun na lang, mas madaling intindihin. Okay, if you have a job, so you have the capacity to pay. Okay, if you don't have a job, but you have your own business, okay, that's also an indicator of your capacity to pay. Diba? So, maganda pag may character and then may capacity ka pa. But then, it's again more favorable if you also have the capital. Some people kasi they have the character, if they have a liability, babayaran talaga yan. They also have jobs or they have the business, but sometimes they don't have the assets, or the capital, the difference of the debt and equity. It's better if you have excess assets that you can use for collateral. Mas maganda na naman yun. If you have assets, that's a good indicator that you are able to accumulate wealth. Okay. Now, if these assets are available for collateral, pwede kasing you have the house, kaya nga lang nakasanla naman sa bangko. You also have a car, kaya nga lang it's not yet fully paid. So, you have the assets, It's just that, naka-collateral na yan. So, it's better if you also have a collateral, okay? Free, and available for use in securing the credit. Now, 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are most of the time, hindi, all of the time, dependent on the borrower. Okay, number 5 is a little unique kasi the borrower doesn't have any influence or control. Okay, it's the condition, it's the current, general, and industry-specific economic conditions and any unique conditions surrounding a specific transaction. Like, for example, you have a borrower and he is currently in, let's say, Syria or in Libya, okay, or in Israel. Ayan. Question, pauutangan mo ba even if he has the character, capacity, capital, and the collateral? Or, for example, it's the pandemic season. O yan, daming mangungutang sa'yo, okay? The borrower has all the 1, 2, 3, 4, the C's. Kaya nga lang, it's pandemic eh. Baka kailangan mo rin yung pera. So even if you have the ability to, the borrower has all the abilities not to pay the amount to be borrowed. Kaya nga lang, ikaw naman pala yung affected. Kaya you cannot tolerate the risk involved. You cannot absorb the risk involved. Okay? After considering the pandemic condition, o di, baka hindi ka rin magpautang. Okay po? So, ayun. That's the 5 C's of credit. You have credit scoring. This is a credit selection method commonly used with high volume, small dollar credit request, which relies on credit score determined by applying statistically derived weights to achieve an chuchuvels. Ganun pala dapat ako mag-discuss mas mabilis. Credit scoring are just Kyorva, kaya of the chuchuvels. Ayun, pag minsan may mga forms na pinapasign sa atin, no? And then you have information there that you have to fill up. Like for example, if you own your own house or if you're just renting. Pag minsan mas mataas yung score if you own your own house, no? As compared to if you are just renting. As compared kapag nakikitira ka lang. Sometimes your contact number is also being considered, no? Okay, you will have a higher score if you are using your landline, okay, as compared to using your cell phone number, okay, na postpaid, as compared to mas mababa na naman kapag prepaid. O kaya kapag wala, baka email lang ang meron. Kaya baka wala ka pang email, kaya ang meron lang sa'yo na contact ay yung dummy account mo sa Messenger. So, yung mga ganun, those are all considered, no, in credit scoring. Like what is your job, is it permanent, okay, is it project based, okay, what is your business, what industry do you belong to, okay, so these are all considered. Okay, now you also have the credit selection and standards pa rin tayo, no? The firm sometimes, okay, will contemplate changing its credit standards in an effort to improve its return and, generate more value for its owners. This means, to increase the profits or to increase the wealth of the shareholders. Okay, so ayun. To demonstrate, consider the following changes and effects on profits expected to result from the relaxation of credit standards. Take note, I just want to emphasize, we're talking about relaxation of credit standards. Okay? Dalawa kasi pwedeng mangyari. You can relax or you can tighten your credit standards. 3 basic elements. You have your sales volume, your investment in AR, and then you have your bad debts expense. Okay, from there you can now conduct your cost benefit analysis if you're going to relax or if you're going to tighten the credit standards. If you're going to relax your credit standards, what will happen to your sales volume? Okay, of course your sales volume will increase kasi you will have more customers, mas relax na. Let's say in the form of discount. Dati, your discount is 10%. No? If they pay, let's say, within 10 days. Pero ngayon, naging 15%. Aba, mas gusto nilang mangutang sa'yo. Or, for example, normally N30. But now, you change that to N45 or N60. Kaya mas mahaba na yung credit period. Mas marami ng customers. Mas marami ng bibili sa'yo. So, the sales volume will go up and that will result to higher sales and higher profits. But, okay, if you try to relax, you will expect that there will be more customers buying on credit. That's why your accounts receivable will go up. So you will have more funds, okay, more resources tied up in your accounts receivable. and that will result to higher opportunity cost. Okay? And that will result to lower profits. What are these opportunity costs? Dalawa kasi yung possible na mangyari dyan. Okay, so makinig kayong mabuti ha. Ano yan? For example, you have this 100 pesos which is currently earning. So it's currently invested, no? Currently earning at 8%, no? If I try to withdraw that, okay, and use it for production, tapos pinautang ko siya, naging accounts receivable, wala na yung 8% ng 100 ko. Tama po? Okay? So, let's say I use that 100 pesos to produce. So, well, let's say it's equal to the variable cost of my sales. So, the variable cost attached to my AR will now be the basis for opportunity cost, which is 8%. So, that's the first scenario. Now, what if, no? Let's say, it's not currently being invested. So, wala akong pinull out from my investments. It's just that I have the ability to invest my collections at 8%. Okay, so let's say from a variable cost na 100, I was able to sell this, no? To sell this at 120 pesos. So, yung opportunity cost ko now will now be based on 120 pesos and not 100. Did you see the difference? Okay? Yung first, I have a current investment earning at 8%. Okay? At yun yung nawala. So, that's 8% times 100. Yung second scenario, whatever I can collect, I can invest it at 8%. So, sayang, nakolekta ko na sana yung 120 pesos na sales ko. Kaya nga lang naging AR pa siya. So, my opportunity cost now is 8% times 120 pesos. Okay, so, ayun. And then what about bad debts? Syempre, if you have more customers buying on credit, we expect that your bad debt expense will also increase. Okay, yung risk, no, na hindi ka makakolekta. So, this one is an expense. So, the effect is obvious. It will result to, no, the increase in bad debts expense will result to lower profits. Okay, so, ayun. Now, let's have a quick example. Okay, running time natin, no, magdadalawang oras na. Okay, pero hindi ko to hahatiin sa iba't ibang discussion. Okay, mas maganda kapag isang file lang siya. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, you have that tool is currently selling a product for $10 per unit. Sales, okay, all on credit for last year were 60,000 units. The variable cost is 6 and fixed cost is 120. The firm is currently contemplating to relax the credit standards. So, what will they do to relax, okay? And what will happen? Ayan, if they're going to relax the credit standards, they expect that their sales will increase, no? Okay, by 5%. So, a 5% increase in unit sales to 63%. Sige nga, what is 5% of 60,000? It's 3,000 units. And then there will be an increase in the average collection period. No? From 30 days, it will now become 45 days. So, that's an increase of 15 days. And what's the effect of that, no? We know that a longer collection period will result to higher accounts receivable. Okay, so yun yung babalikan natin, di ba? Higher investment in accounts receivable. Now, let's continue. An increase in bad debts expense from 1% of sales, okay? From 1% to 2%, ganun pala. And the opportunity cost of tying up funds in accounts receivable is 15%. Now, let's continue. Your fixed costs are sunk. Why? Well, whether you relax your credit standards or not, you will still incur this cost. So, the fixed costs are no longer relevant. Okay? The only relevant cost, okay, here will be the changes in your bad debts and the changes in the opportunity cost that is assigned to your accounts receivable. Of course, no, you have to consider also the changes in your sales because that one is also relevant. In MS, di ba, only what changes counts. And yung tatlo lang na nabanggit kanina, change in sales, change in the investment in accounts receivable, and you also have your change in bad debts. So let's try to come up with a cost-benefit analysis. Question is it wise for us to relax the credit standards? Okay. Now, let's try analyzing this. No? Sabi niya, the profit contribution will be 4. That's 10 minus 6. And the total additional profit contribution from sales will be 12,000. That's 3 units times 4 per unit. Saan po nanggaling yung 3 units? This is actually 63,000 minus 60,000. Diba? 60,000, it will increase by 5%. 5% is 3,000. And there you go. What's this for? This is 10, the selling price, minus the variable cost per unit, which is 6. Now, let's continue. To determine the cost of marginal investment in accounts receivable, wait, let's go back. This one, let's just call this number 1. That's the increase in the profit. You know, increase in contribution margin is also the increase in our profit. Now, let's go to number 2. Okay, the investment in AR. So, these are the following formulas given. The investment in AR is equal to total variable cost. Take note, ang ginamit niya ay variable cost. So, ang assumption natin dito ay, it's like the first assumption, no? You have a money that is currently invested, earning at a certain amount. Okay, so you're going to pull that out and then use that in your production. So, the opportunity cost will now be based on the variable cost. Okay, so you have the variable cost of annual sales divided by the turnover of accounts receivable. And the turnover is computed this way. Ayan, di ba? Parang binaliktad lang, no? Kasi originally, the accounts receivable turnover is computed, no, by dividing your credit sales divided by your average accounts receivable, and then you will get your turnover. And then, the average collection period is computed by dividing 365 or 360, kung saan ka man masaya, as long as you are consistent. 365 divided by accounts receivable turnover. Okay, given these two formulas from FS analysis, and if you are going to compute for the average accounts receivable, what you do is, first, you need to compute for the turnover. Diba? Siya yun. Okay? By using this formula. So, you reverse the formula. Okay? You have, average collection period yun. Okay, so you reverse the formula. You now have 365 divided by average collection period equals accounts receivable turnover. Now that you have that, okay, you simply divide that by the total variable cost of annual sales divided by the turnover, and you get the investment in AR. Okay, so ganun. Dapat sales yan and you get the investment in AR. Pero in terms of variable cost lang. Now, let's continue. So, your total variable cost of annual sales originally was 360. Now, in the proposed plan, you have 378. Okay, so from there, using 365 as your average collection period, you will now be able to compute for the increase in accounts receivable. Using the following turnovers, 365K over 30, that's the old one, versus the new turnover, which is 8.1, okay, we use that to divide, to divide the 360 and 378. Ito yung investment natin in terms of variable cost. Now, your average accounts receivable is 29,000 and 46,000. You get the difference, Okay, that's the increase in accounts receivable times your opportunity cost, which is 15%. That's now the cost of marginal investment in AR. In short, this is how much was foregone by using your money to produce products that you're going to sell on credit. Okay po, so you should be earning 2,500 na, kaya nga lang hindi, pinautang mo siya. Parang ganun yon. Okay, so let's call this number 2. No? Number 2. Ayan. The effect in the profits. Now, let's talk about bad debts. Old sales, 60,000 units. New sales, 63,000 units. Old rate, 1%. The new rate is 2%. Multiply, get the difference. This will be your additional bad debts, which will result to lower profits. If you try to put them together, if you remember, this is number 1. Okay, so that's number 1. This one is number 2. Why is it deducted? Because this one is a cost. It will reduce your profits. Bad debts, number 3. This will also reduce your profits. And tada, you now have a positive 2,826. Question, is it wise to relax your credit standards? The answer is yes, because there is an estimated increase in our profits amounting to 2,826. Okay po? Naku, maraming mga variations ito. Okay, humanda kayo kasi I might give you some exercises in the future. Ito, credit management is difficult enough for managers of purely domestic companies, and this task become much more complex for companies that operate internationally. Okay, so paano yung kapag meron kang international operation? So these are the things that you have to consider. Ayun lang naman. Okay, and then credit terms, very easy. Okay, terms of sale who have been extended credit by the firm. It could be in terms of length of time, yung duration natin, or yung credit terms could be in the form of discount. Pag minsan combination in your basic accounting, di ba, you have 210, like this one, 210 and 30. Ayan. This is your credit period, and this one is now your discount. Okay. So what does that mean? Okay, in 10 days, if you pay within 10 days, you get a discount of 2%. Okay. If you don't pay within 10 days, make sure that you pay within 30 days. Here's another example. Okay, you have annual sales of 10 million and the average collection period of 40 days, so meaning your turnover is 4.1. In accordance with the firm's credit terms of net 30, this period is divided into 32 days until the customer place their payments in the mail, okay, and then plus 8 days, okay, para ma-receive, process, and collect. So that's a total of 40 days. Now, this company is considering to initiate a cash discount by changing its credit term from N30, it's just N30. This time, they're going to have 210. So, they're now going to provide a discount, okay, which will now encourage your customers to pay earlier. Now, the firm expects this change to reduce the amount of time until payments are placed in the mail, resulting in an average collection period of 25 days. So from 40 days, it's now 25 days. Which means if you have a shorter average collection period, diba, may effect yan sa turnover, and this will also affect our average accounts receivable. Okay, so let's try to put that together. What will now be the things that you have to consider? Okay, there will be an increase in your sales. Parang kulang yata yung information natin dito eh. I think originally they will be selling 1,100 units, but because of this they will be increasing their sales to 1,150 units. So there will be an increase in 50 units. Okay, they are selling this for 3,000 units. Okay, that's the selling price, and then the variable cost is 2,300. Okay, so the contribution margin per unit is now 700. 700 per unit. Okay, so you multiply that by 50 units, the additional units to be sold, you now have 35,000. That's the increase in your profit. But there will also be an increase in your accounts receivable. Increase ba or decrease? Okay, so tingnan natin. You have the present AR without discount. It's 278. I'm not going to discuss this na because yung approach parang na-discuss na natin earlier. Now, for the proposed, using the formulas given earlier, you will have the new average accounts receivable, which means bumaba pala siya. No, from 278, it became 181,000. So there is a reduction in the accounts receivable. So earlier, okay, an increase in accounts receivable will result to opportunity cost. No, that will result to a decrease in your profits. But this time, bumaba eh. So what will happen? You will have extra earnings because this can now be saved and invested at how much? I think it's 40%. So yun, at 40%. Okay, so aside from the additional profits coming from increase in sales, you also have additional profits coming from the reduction of your accounts receivable. Okay, so ayun. Kunyari, masaya pa rin kayo at gising pa rin kayo. And now, let's continue. Aside from that, there will be an increase in your cost in terms of discount. Kasi dati hindi ka nagpapa-discount. Ngayon, magpapa-discount ka na. Okay, so from your new sales, which is 1,150 units, okay, this one, i-read na nga natin. Red. Okay, this one times the sales times the percentage that will avail. In this case, it's assumed to be 80%, no? We assume that 80% will avail the cash discount. And how much is the cash discount? It's 2%. You multiply that. That's now your additional cost, 55,200. Resulting to a negative 6,640. This will reduce your profit. So is it wise to offer a cash discount of 2%? Net effect, it's not wise. Bakit ganun? Kasi, ayan, bababa yung profits mo by 6,000. Okay. But then again, you can also consider this as a cost of improving the quality of your accounts receivable. Now that your accounts receivable is lower, and then the chances of collecting your AR will now be higher. Now, if you notice, there is no consideration for bad debts. Imagine if you have an existing bad debts and then there will be a reduction in bad debts. So that should also be considered. Okay. Ayun. Cash discount period is the number of days after beginning the credit period during which the cash discount is available. So in this case, this is your cash discount. If you have 210 as your discount terms, 10 days is your cash discount period. Okay, so what will now be the effects, if this one will be increased? Sabi niya, a firm was to increase its cash discount period. What will happen? That will be more favorable for your customers, so we expect that your sales will increase. Aside from that, okay, more of your existing customers will want to pay and avail of this discount, so your bad debts expense will decrease. And the profit per unit would decrease as a result of more people taking the discount. Yun nga lang, okay, you will have more people taking advantage of the discount, so this will decrease your profits. Okay. Credit period is the number of days after the beginning of the credit period until full payment of the account is due. Okay, so if you increase this, what will happen? Okay, we expect that your sales will increase because that's more favorable for your suppliers, customers. Kaya nga lang, since this is credit period, accounts receivable will also increase and it will follow that bad debts will also increase. Credit monitoring is the ongoing review of a firm's accounts receivable. Okay, here under credit monitoring, you'll be able to identify, okay, if your customers are not paying on a timely manner. Okay, aside from that, you'll be able to identify how much of your accounts receivable are classified as, overdue na, ilan sa kanila yung mabagal, no, or ilan sa mga customers mo yung mga slow payers, ganon. And then most of the time, ang ginagamit dito is the average collection period, and of course, the favorite, it's the aging of accounts receivable. Okay, so what's the formula for the average collection period? That's the formula. Okay, you can just pause the video and read. As of this point, I just want to emphasize, okay, you want to have a shorter average collection period. Okay, so ayun lang naman yun. Aging naman, I'm not going to show you how to prepare the aging schedule, no? Pero in the aging schedule, okay, you will see, no, the number of days due. Okay, you now have the amount. Okay, normally yan yung nakalagay. Days due or past due, normally you have ranges from 0 to 30. Okay, and then you have 31 to 60, 61 to, let's say, 120 or 90, and so on and so forth. Now, days due, okay, or past due is different from the age. Because, let's say, no, if your credit period is N30 and you have an AR which is 29 days old, that's the age, it's 29 days old, but it's not yet due. 0, it will only fall under 0 to 30 if, let's say, it's already beyond 30. Assuming, no, it's N30 and the age is already, let's say, 40 days, no? It's 40 days. So, this is already 10 days due. 10 days due. So, it falls on 0 to 30 past due or days due. Okay, so yun. So, you have the following amounts. Okay, let's assume that you are understanding this and this is now your total accounts receivable. Okay, binibilisan ko kasi baka natutulog na yung mga iba sa inyo ngayon. Anyway, pwede nyo naman i-post tapos ituloy nyo na naman mamaya, di ba? Okay, so kunyari nag-e-enjoy pa rin kayo. Okay, anyway, we are almost done. These are the popular collection techniques. Feel free to pause the video and take a screen capture, no? I just want to emphasize that they are arranged according to their friendliness. Now, when I say arranged according to friendliness, okay, this is the friendliest approach, okay? If you want to collect, ayan, and you want to be your friendliest, okay, you can send a letter. If the letters sent did not work, okay, you can now make a phone call. Hi, hello, would like to remind you that you have an outstanding balance with us. Okay, chuvels, have a nice day. Okay, and then inisnab pa rin yan, that's the time for you to conduct a personal visit. Ayun. Most of the time, no, if you use the services of collection agencies, pag minsan may negative na epekto sa mga customers natin. Sometimes they feel that they are not being valued, no, na wala tayong tiwala sa kanila. That's why ganun, we're using the services of the collection agencies na. And as much as possible, we'd like to prevent this one, legal action. Pero if we're talking of significant amounts, and we really need to collect, syempre kailangan natin yan. Okay po. But then again, please don't forget to consider the circumstances, the conditions surrounding the situation. Okay, baka naman pandemic na, wala talaga silang pangbayad, ganun, or biglang naka-freeze yung mga assets niya, kahit na anong gawin mo, hindi ka makakakolekta. So, isa yung mga ganung bagay. Anyway, for receipts and floats naman, okay, shortcut lang, okay, receipts, you want this to be faster. Disbursements, you want this to be slower. Okay. What is a float? Okay. A float is actually a time. Ngayon na lang, para madaling intindihin. It's a timing difference from when, okay, a payment was made, a payment or collected was made, no? If you are the one collecting, up to the time, okay, the cash is available for use. Or if you are the one paying, this is the time, no, which starts from the time of payment, nag-disburse ka, up to the time that the actual cash is deducted, no, from our bank balance. Pwede kasi yun eh. No, for example, let's talk about checks, no. Ako yung magbabayad, no. I issued a check at 5 p.m., no, of Friday. So my bookkeeper can now record debit to accounts payable and credit to cash in bank. But then, kay the bank, no, where this check came from, does not operate on a Saturday and a Sunday. So the one, no, receiving the check can just encash this on Monday. Diba? So I already recorded the payment on Friday, but it will be deducted in my bank on Monday. That will now be 2 days float. Imagine if I can continuously do this. Okay? Naka-disburse na on my records, but the cash is still available for 2 days. And if you keep on doing this, kay mag-earn yan ng interest. So, tataas yung profits mo. Okay. Now, the opposite naman, what if I was able to speed up my collection naman? Dati, it's 35 days, no, on the average. But because I'm using, let's say, lockbox system, or I made it a policy for my customers that they are going to pay online, no, so from 35 days, kunyari, ay naging 30 days na lang. Ayun, kaya wala na yung days na yan. 10 days na lang, 5 days na lang. Imagine if I can do that, no? For 1 year, I will have more cash in the bank, which will earn interest. Diba? So, for receipts, you want them to be slower. So, you want to increase the float. Any strategies that will increase the float for receipts are favorable. Any strategies that will decrease the float, okay, for disbursements is also favorable. Okay? For disbursement float, it's also known as collection float. Okay, for float pertaining to receipts, they are known as payment float. So, yun lang naman yung summary nun. And there are different kinds of float, no? Both parties will have mail float, the processing float, and the clearing float. But it really depends if you want to speed this up or slow this down. Depende kung ikaw yung tumatanggap or kung ikaw yung nagbabayad. Okay, so there you go. Speeding up collections reduces customers' collection float time and thus reduces the firm's average collection period, which is good, which reduces the investment the firm must take in its cash conversion cycle. Diba, you remember our earlier discussion? We want this to be as short as possible. Okay, so there are a lot of techniques, no? And one of the most popular, you have your lockbox system. Now, if you know the P.O. box system for mails, I mean M-A-I-L-S. Ayan, mga sulat, okay? It's the same. It's just that we're talking about money here, no? About collections. It's called lockbox system. Parang P.O. box lang ng pera. So, this will speed up your collection. Okay? Ano pa? For slowing down payments, there are a lot of strategies also, no? One of which is, yung checking nga na ini-issue mo during weekends, okay? Or controlled disbursing. This is the strategy use of mailing points and bank accounts to lengthen mail float and clearing float respectively. So, pinapatagal mo lang yung dinadaanan ng cheque. Ay, naku, sana and I'm back. Sana face to face para walang nangyayaring mga technical issues na ganito. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, cash concentration naman, to summarize, okay, when you're using lockbox system, mas maganda na naman if you're using concentration bank. Okay, this is when you just try to use one bank, no, to manage a large pool of funds or a large pool of collection. Okay, para mas mapabilis yung receipts natin. Okay po, so feel free to read this and screen capture. Basta, one bank lang siya. And then, okay, what about this? You also have your, naririnig ko na to dati, depository transfer check. This is when you have, kunyari, you're already using the concentration bank, you have a third party, parang ganun. You have a third party that will collect the data, okay, of your collections coming from different locations. Kasi it's possible that you have operations from different locations. Okay, and your operations will have different banks. Okay, so what you're going to do now, you have a third party which will monitor how much of your, yung long distance operations mo, how much of this how much were the deposits made by these operations in their respective banks. Now, the main bank, yung concentration bank, will now have an unsigned check, drawn, from the firm's bank account and deposited to the concentration bank. So yun, hindi na kailangang signan. Ganun lang yun para mabilis na ma-deposit doon sa concentration bank yung mga collections from other operations. Mas mabilis na naman kung meron kang automated clearing house, no? These are pre-authorized electronic withdrawal from the payer's account and deposit into payee's account. Ito yata yung mas makaka-relate kayo kasi pag may online banking na, 'di ba? GCash, yung mga ganyan, no? Okay, so ang bilis. May electronic withdrawal and then real time yung transfer ng funds. Okay, yun na yung wire transfer. Okay. Hindi lang pera, pati nga yung mga entries pag minsan automatic na rin. Okay, eto dinidiscuss natin to in a CS subject natin. Okay, I forgot the name of that subject. No, yung details ng kung saan dinidiscuss din natin yung mga MRP, MRP2, and then you have your ERP, and then pagdating sa asset management, ayan, napapasok na yung automated clearinghouse, and then you have your wire transfer. Balikan natin yan soon. You also have your zero balance account, another strategy of controlling your disbursements. And this is when you have a balance, you have a bank account, and at the end of the day, the balance of that account is zero. Kaya siya tinawag na zero balance account because you are only going to deposit the exact amount, okay, of what you have drawn, no? Kung ano man yung inisyo mo doon sa cheque, so yun lang yung i-deposit mo. Now, going to marketable securities, we have actually a different discussion on marketable securities, no? Especially on the tools, which will be your assignment. But as of this point, I just want to introduce to you the different types of marketable securities or short-term investments. Dalawa yan, no? Dalawa yan. You have your government issues, no? And you have your non-government issues. Mga galing sa mga private companies. Okay, yeah, feel free to pause the video, no, if you want to read this, but I just want to emphasize, no, on the maturity and the risk and return, no, in relation to the risk and return. As you can see, no, before we go there pala, let's talk about the issuer. We expect, no, that that we are going to observe. Kasi ang dami ganyan. Okay, we expect that the risk of the securities issued by the government, okay, will always have a lower risk. Mas mababa palagi. Okay, it will always be lower as compared to the non-government issued securities. Ang hirap mag-English, ano? Basta mas mababa yung risk pag gobyerno ang nag-issue. Now, going to government-issued securities, okay, again, the risk will be lower, okay, if, the initial maturity is shorter. Okay, so if you're going to try to compare bills and notes, okay, if you are asked which one is riskier, well, the one that has a longer maturity, which is notes. Okay, if you compare that with bonds, okay, since the maturity is longer, diba, we expect that the risk is also higher. Okay, so ayun. Now, if you try to compare those with the non-government issues, ganun na naman, titignan mo yung maturity, no? Aside from the maturity, also the nature, no, whether they are secured or unsecured. If they are unsecured, the risk will be higher. If they are secured, the risk will be lower. Now, if you are comparing secured notes, okay, you look at the maturity. If the maturity is shorter, mas mababa yung risk. If the maturity is longer, mas mataas yung risk. Sir, how come the rates are not given? Kasi yung rates pabago-bago yan. But take note, okay, the risk can also be used as an indicator for your return. So once you can identify the level of the risk, no, as compared to other securities, no, the risk of a security as compared to other securities, you will now have an idea on the expected return. The higher the risk, the higher the return. Okay, so ganun, that's how you understand government issued versus non-government issued. Yung risk muna nila. And then, titignan mo yung maturity. Okay? For non-government issues, before you go to the maturity, you look at the nature muna, whether they are secured or unsecured, before you go to the level of maturity. Okay po, so I guess that's it. And more examples on non-government issues, you have Euro-dollar deposits, money market mutual funds. When we say mutual funds, this is actually, a group of investment already. Kumbaga parang this is a cake of investments. Ayan. It has a lot of ingredients, okay, different kinds of investments. Pinagsama-sama mo sila, okay, to come up with the ideal portfolio. Okay, what is the ideal or efficient portfolio? A group of asset which was able to minimize the risk at a given level of return, or a portfolio which were able to maximize the overall return at a given level of risk. Okay, so parang tinitimpla-timpla mo lang yan, yung portfolio na yan. Okay, so when we say money market mutual funds, this is a mutual fund which is composed of different money market securities. Oh, by the way, I want to emphasize that Euro-dollar deposits are not European dollars. These are actually US dollars that are deposited outside US. May mahabang kwento yan eh. Okay, kaya siya nakadeposit. Okay, tapos yung certificate na yun yung trade nila. Okay, which will be discussed in other subjects. Okay, pero yun lang. Okay, this is one of the common misconceptions kasi that euro dollars are European dollars. Hindi, these are US dollars deposited in Europe. Ganun na lang. Okay, paano nangyari yun? It has something to do with trade. Ganun. Nag-umpisa pa yun ng World War II, I think. Pero since ang running time natin ay more than 2 hours na, saka ko na po ikukwento po sa inyo. So, I guess that's it. Buti na lang hindi ko pa sinama sa discussion yung mga assignments ninyo. Kaya yung EOQ pala, nasama ko na kahit pa paano. So, we can remove that now. Your assignment now will be to research on Marketable Securities Management using the following tools: Baumol Model and the Miller-Orr Model. Okay? So, I guess that's it. That's the end of my presentation, and thank you very much. Feel free to post your comments or your questions in our discussion boards. Yun na po at maraming salamat.